Hello, this is Grant Hughes of Grant Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Please hit that like button, share the video, and subscribe. But hit that like button for me really quick. Thank you. Unless you've been hiding under a rock and you only watch one or two people covering the Nancy Guthrie case, you wouldn't have known that on my channel we've discussed the reason that the doorbell camera was removed many, many times. In fact, I would say at least 4 or 5 dozen times I've explained exactly why the doorbell camera was removed. Now, apparently, Brian Enton just had on a guest, and it's a new revelation to them, what I'm about to tell you. I have said since mid-February that the reason that the Ring doorbell camera was removed was solely and merely because they were going to be moving the car that they were going to abduct Nancy Guthrie with right there. I've said that the reason the person is at the house is to abduct Nancy Guthrie, and the reason they removed the camera was so that the vehicle that's going to be pulling up right here cannot be identified on that camera. They were more than willing to show up in front of the camera with the balaclava on, etc. You know, when we watch this picture here, he's really casual about it. Yes, he does have his head down right there, but right over here, he knows he's being filmed this whole time. He's not worried about it. He's likely wearing clothing that he just purchased, and he's never worn it before, so nobody's going to say, oh, I know that. That's Jim. He wears that. All right? Now, he goes over here, and he picks up some grass. I think he just didn't want to maybe cut his gloves or something like that, so he picked up some, like a weed over there, and then curved it to then try to pull off, and I think he was successful in pulling off the camera. Now, I originally thought he was trying to place that on there to try to block the lens, but I actually just think he was removing the camera with the stem of that. And the reason he's removing it is because he knows he's going to be coming out that door and going to a vehicle that is parked right on the turnaround, right there. Now, we've been saying this for like literally weeks now, and apparently it's a new revelation to Brian Enton. I don't know about the guest. I don't know where he got the information from, but it's literally almost verbatim to what I've been saying on my show for a very long time. So let's listen to what I've been saying for months. I found 3 different clips. They're in virtually almost every live stream that we've done. But I just gave you some of the earliest ones. I think there's even some prior to that. So let's take a look at those right now. However, I do think when he went there to take Nancy out the front of the house. I do think that. And you know why? Because he removed the light from the camera from the front door. He removed the camera from the front door. And by doing that, that allows him to move his vehicle into that position to then put her into the car after that. But if the car, if you didn't have that camera removed and you pulled up the vehicle, it would be clear on camera what type of vehicle it was, etc.
The whole purpose of removing the Ring camera, and this is what I've concluded based on looking at anything, was he disguised himself. What he could not disguise was the vehicle. So you remove the camera because you don't want it transmitting a picture of the vehicle. Because we know that the blood stopped at the exact place a vehicle would have had to have been for Nancy to be put into a car. The question was there one or was there 2?
I am 100% certain that he removed the camera at the front of the house because he knew he was going to be parking his car right in front of the house. You know how I am certain of that? Because he didn't care that he was being filmed when he was in that archway there, you know, that whole area. He was just walking around. He didn't care at all that he was being filmed. He's got his balaclava. He's got his, you know, the gloves, the whole outfit on. Probably all new things that aren't things he normally would wear. And he didn't care about that. So what he cared about was what would be filmed on the camera in the future. What would identify him, however, or possibly do so, would be if the camera picked up his vehicle after parking it right there in that little turn area where he would obviously want to move her down the driveway and put her into the vehicle. Okay? Doesn't that make sense? I mean, out of all the things that you guys have heard, Doesn't that make sense?
I was just thinking about what Morgan Wright told me in my latest episode, his theory about the doorbell camera in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. It's something that I hadn't thought about before, which I'm kind of surprised, but he believes that the reason the suspect pulled the camera down was not to conceal his identity, but instead so that the camera would not pick up the car, the getaway car, that may have pulled into Nancy's driveway. You know, she has that circular driveway in the front that goes right by the front door. He believes that the camera was pulled so that it would not pick up the getaway car that he believes pulled up right there in front of the door, which is just an interesting theory.
Pulled into here after removing the camera, knowing that they're going to be parked right there to take Nancy out of the home. That's the only reason they removed the camera and tried to block it. Yeah, so as you can see, we've been talking about it for a very, very long time. And in fact, I wasn't even able to find the first time I thought through it and came up with that idea. And I absolutely believe that that is the only reason that that camera was removed. You know, I mean, if you look at this image right here and you just kind of move it forward, see how clear it would have been? You'd at least be able to make out the make and model. And maybe it's this person had a vehicle that wasn't sort of a generic type of a car and thought, man, I'll be able to be identified so that they, you know, I don't know about that. I mean, it could just be that they had, you know, any vehicle that they happen to be using might be able to be traced back to them just by the make and model, because you could look it up. For example, back in the Delphi case, unfortunately, law enforcement didn't look up the type of vehicle that drove by the Hoosier Harvest Store camera in that case. And they would have found out that there's only one of that type of vehicle in the area. And that was Richard Allen's vehicle. So that's pretty interesting. Like in this case, maybe they'd be able to see what type of vehicle it was, look it up, and see how many there are within, let's say, 5 miles of there. And then see if any of those people make sense. You know, I guess we don't know what law enforcement's doing in this case because we've had absolutely zero updates for, I mean, almost since the beginning of the case. I think it was like the 5th or 6th of February was the last time we were updated by anybody, which is, in my opinion, ridiculous. All right, everybody. Well, thank you all very much for watching. If you want to get the information accurate and theories that make sense, you might consider coming to this channel, because we actually come up with stuff way before the media does, because they're more about just getting information out really quick, and they don't really think about nor do they synthesize the information into something meaningful. All right, so if you guys could hit that like button, that would be great. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of the videos. We are currently doing a bunch of live streams on the Nancy Guthrie case, focusing in on various topics. And tonight we'll probably be talking about another topic. So if you want to tune in, I usually do the shows between 6 and 7 at night, every single night of the week. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for watching. And as I always say, until next time, be safe out there.